Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia, and this is the summary for the day of 477 to 478 for the 15 to 16 of June. And let's start off with pressing the like button. And at the Kherson Front, the Ukrainian forces have actually launched some naval attack. There is a naval attack reported at Hulyaipole and also at Orikhiv. According to the information from pro-Russian source Ryba, they say that the Ukrainians are trying to insert reconnaissance forces or sabotage forces into the Russian-controlled territory. The fighting resulted in 2 boats destroyed at Hulyaipole and another 5 destroyed at Orikhiv. And however, the Ukrainians also did manage to land some troops over in the islands near Orikhiv. This information is coming from Ryba. The reason why they are able to do this is because the water is now receding. The islands has returned because after the initial destruction of the dam, the water had been flooding out. But the water is now slowly draining out. So the islands are back, but the place is still very wet, and but it's enough for the Ukrainians to actually launch some attack into this territory. Let's make it thicker. No, I know you like it thick, right? So yeah, no, and okay, so that's all from the Kherson front. Moving into the Zaporizhzhia front. At the Zaporizhzhia front in the Kamyanske sector, this is Kamyanske. At the Kamyanske sector, the Ukrainian forces have managed to secure Lubkove. Previously, they managed to counterattack and recaptured the town. Then this time around, they are able to secure it. They then launched attack to the western part of Petikaki. Information's coming from Ryba as well as from Remlin 21. All are pro-Russian sources. They say that the Ukrainians are trying to attack Petikaki from the western part, and the fighting is actually done with infantry with the support of some armored vehicles. Then on the 16th, there was reports of the fighting south of Lubkove, and as you can see from Ryba's information, they say that the offensive is conducted by small infantry groups with cover fire from tanks and armored vehicles. So there is this push from the south, they push from the west, and in the latest information just came out from Ryba. This one is today's information. They say that the Ukrainians actually managed to push the Russians out of Petikaki, and the Russian fighters are forced to retreat. This happens in today's morning, but however, the Russian forces launched a counterattack, and as of 11 a.m. local time, they have recaptured Petikaki and they are clearing the village. So the fighting, as per the report from the field, suggests that there is actually no Western equipment being used, only few pickup trucks and Soviet infantry fighting vehicles. And the Russian Air Force is now striking Ukrainian forces that's probably on the retreat, and from this area here. So the fighting, the Russians continue to hold control of Petikaki with the counterattack from the Russians being successful. The Russian Defense Ministry basically just sums up the fighting to be near Zeribyanki. They say that in today's report, this report only just came out as per this recording. Yeah, because it took a bit time to update this. They say that they repelled 3 different attacks over the past day. This is today's report, but this probably reporting about yesterday. So that's why even though it's 17, it's actually talking about the 16. They talk about 3 different attacks. So the situation here remains unchanged, with the Ukrainians still having control over Lubkove, with the Russians continue to have control over Petikaki and Zeribyanki. The Russian Defense Ministry also reported they have shelled Ukrainian forces over at Stepove, as the Ukrainians were sending reinforcement down the road towards Lubkove, and they get actually hit by Russian artillery. And that's all from the Kamyanske sector. We move into the Orikhiv sector. At the Orikhiv sector, the Ukrainian forces previously have sort of paused the fighting over in this region, where they previously launch major offensive. This is one of those major area that the Ukrainians focus. They kind of abandoned the attack. Now the fighting has resumed. The first information comes from Deep State UA actually. They say that fighting resumed in south of Novosilka. And this is not reported by any other sources. Only Deep State UA mentioned that. And then in today's report, in the latest today's report, as even though you see that the SITREP is for 15 to 16, because this SITREP came a bit late today, because I was sleeping, and so the information from today, these are all the latest information. As of this report, all the information is the latest. I just want to let you know, even though the date suggests that it's 15 to 16. On the 17th, which is latest report, they say that the Ukrainian forces have resumed the attack against the Robotine Verbove line. So after they launched fire artillery, Ukrainian armored groups advanced to the 291st to 70th Regiment of the Russian forces, and the fighting is still now ongoing. And similarly, over at the south of Malatomashka, the fighting is also now started. Reported by Ryba, the pro-Russian source, and the Russian Defense Ministry also reported this. They say that Malatomashka, so they repelled attack over at Malatomashka. Oh, sorry. So just now the three different attacks is actually referring to Serebrenka as one attack, Malatomashka as one attack, Merne as one attack. Yeah, so I made a mistake there. So the Ukrainian forces is currently pushing again in this area here. There is a major Russian fortification over here with the main line of defense over at the Robotine Verbove line. So we shall see how this goes, because the Ukrainians have changed their tactic. They no longer do tank rush. They are now doing infantry rush with the support of armored fire support. And that's all from the Orikhiv sector. We move into the Hulyaipole sector. There is interesting information coming from the Russian Defense Ministry. They say that there is fighting at Merne, and on the 15th of June, there is reconnaissance group reported at Zahirne. So now we have fighting being reported at Merne. This is a new development. The Ukrainians have not exactly launched any sort of major operations, perhaps only at Dorozhenka a little bit. And now they are now attacking Merne over here. They probed Zahirne previously, and there is also an airstrike being reported yesterday, where they destroyed another recon forces near Dorozhenka. So there was Ukrainian probing around this area, and probably they decided Merne is the target, and which is why the attack happens over here. So this is another sector that we will be interested to look at, because Hulyaipole does look a bit more palatable. If you look at the Russian defense line over here, this is stupidly heavy. Very thick line. The Hulyaipole sector is much thinner as compared to the one below south of Velyka Novosilka. So the Ukrainians pushing this way does makes a lot more sense, if you ask me. But of course, these are all mirages. It may look very thick, but the Ukrainians are still fighting in the outpost region. So over at the Velyka Novosilka sector, this remains to be one of the prime areas of fighting. Fighting is being reported, continued to be reported in the Makarivka region, with the Ukrainians continue to attack towards Staromayoske. This report was on the 15th of June. And this goes along with the fighting in Uruzhaine on the 16th of June. So the Ukrainians continue to be attacking in this area here, towards the twin town of Uruzhaine and Staromayoske. The change of Ukrainian tactic is also noted by the pro-Russian sources, saying that now they are using artillery shelling first, then infantry is deployed in armored vehicles close to the settlements, then they are backed up by heavier equipment like the tanks and the armored fighting vehicles. So this allows the Ukrainian forces to actually preserve their equipments, and infantry are also more mobile, but at the same time they are more sacrificable in the pro-Russian source way of putting. And they say that the Ukrainians don't really mind throwing them under airstrikes and artillery strikes, which I have to say that's just how war is being fought, because infantry is just smaller. It's just a smaller target. So over at the western part of the Velyka Novosilka sector, we have fighting reported near Novosilka. According to the Vostok group of forces, they reported that there is motorized infantry fighting over in this area here, and there is also an attempted assault near Novopil. So the Ukrainians were actually pushing to launch an attack, but they got spotted and then they got shelled by Russian forces. That actually caused the attack to be abandoned. However, in yesterday's report, that we still have fighting reported at Rivnopil. So the fighting actually still managed to arrive at Rivnopil despite the stopping of the attack over at Novopil. And further south, over at the Novosilka region, there is fighting reported at Novosilka on the 15th. This is the same report as the one higher up, over in this area of Novosilka. And on the next day, the fighting is still ongoing over at this region, according to Deep State UA, the pro-Ukrainian source. They made an interesting note that the 80th regiment was fighting the 80th, the 37th is fighting the 37th. So yeah, that's just coincidence, I guess. And then further south at Levadne, there was on the 15th, there was an attempted attack, and then it was actually destroyed. It was actually stopped by the Russian artillery and airstrikes. However, the fighting still end up happening. The Vostok group of forces then reported that they are fighting their motorized rifle units were engaging with the Ukrainians. On the 16th, the fighting continues, with the Ukrainians attack with 2 platoons over at Levadne, and there was also a column of Ukrainian forces getting hit. According to Deep State UA, they say that the fighting is still ongoing over at this region here. And in the latest report coming from the Russian Defense Ministry, they say that they managed to repel an attack over this area here. The claim was that they killed 30 soldiers and two. Let me see, is this the same place? Yeah, it's a combination of few places. So the casualties, as per reported by the Russians, are not that high. Only 30 soldiers, 2 tanks, 2 infantry fighting vehicles across across only 2 areas. So that's actually not a lot of losses on the Ukrainian side. So there is this very major push over at Levadne region. This seems like the prime push, despite there was attacks over further up in the north. And there is interesting information also that Stepove also ceased fighting. This is reported by the pro-Ukrainian source Deep State UA. So they are fighting towards Stepove. This is actually something new. We haven't had fighting happened over here. So as a result, because this seems more like part of the Velyka Novosilka sector, I have moved the border a little bit, the front lines a little bit, so that the fighting over at Stepove is actually seen as under Velyka Novosilka sector, so that this the Hulyaipole sector is a bit more compact in the mapping. And to get this mapping, if you are interested to look at all this mapping, look at the sources, if you think this is going to be useful for you, you can become a DPA officer on Patreon, Boosty, or coffee.com. The links are in the description below. You can actually sign up, and with your money, you can actually support my work to continue this mapping, because the mapping actually takes a stupid amount of time. Like this mapping here probably took me at least 10 hours. Because it's actually across 2 days, 3 days, 2.5 days. So this is actually a lot of mapping, which is why the support from you guys will actually helps to keep this mapping and reporting continue. And that's all from the Velyka Novosilka sector as we move into the Donetsk Front, still within the sector of Velyka Novosilka, which I currently still pondering if I should actually extend this Velyka Novosilka sector, you know, to here, so that it reflects better the front line. Anyway, the Ukrainians attack between Uruzhane and Novodonetsk, and they managed to have some kind of salient between the two towns. The information first was reported by the Russian Defense Ministry on the 15th of June, and then by the 16th of June, this salient is now being recognized by the pro-Russian sources, saying that they managed to, you know, push 150 to 200 meters with infantry on armored vehicles. And Deep State UA also mentioned about the fighting between Uruzhane and Novodonetsk. So this is actually a very fight push by all sides. And so there is interesting note is that the Orikhiv, which previously was the name here, was now suddenly changed by Google Maps into Kamyanske. So although the Russian name was, or the Ukrainian name was always Kamyanske, but the English name was actually Orikhiv. So yeah, I just find that change very random, like out of a sudden. And there is fighting reported at Novodonetsk. This is reported by the Russian Defense Ministry. Yeah, so this comes after the report of Ukrainian reinforcement near Novodonetsk, as the 4 armored vehicles is actually sent into the forest plantation. And so the Ukrainians now are able to attack Novodonetsk after the reinforcement has arrived. Typically, the reinforcement tends to come from Velyka Novosilka. And that's all from this side of the Velyka Novosilka sector. Over at the Voleda region, fighting has appeared again. There was fighting being reported towards Vodian, according to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. And as you know that in recent days, I'm pretty skeptical about the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. I kind of suspect that this actually is a Ukrainian attack. And then the information was this concept that this might be a Ukrainian attack is corroborated by the Russian Defense Ministry's Vostok Group of Forces. So Vostok Group of Forces reported that the units of their forces, actually supported by artillery and airstrikes, hit Ukrainian forces as the Ukrainians are attempting to carry out offensive operation. And they also, you know, repelled reconnaissance operations south of Vodian. So could be both is correct. Maybe the Ukrainians are just, you know, probing around this area here, you know, and then the Russians attack them, and then the Ukrainians say that it's an attack. Russians also say that it's an attack, and this is then acknowledged by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. They say that there is a Russian offensive operation in the direction of Vodian, which is here. So so I would say this is just positional fighting. I would not say this is some kind of offensive per se, but the situation here must be very tense. So moving on to, in the Novosilka sector, just south of Marinka, there's some interesting information coming out from this area here. Surya Maps and Ryba reported that the Russians attacked south of Marinka, with the Russians pushing south and managed to capture some ground which we already have mapped as under Russian control. So it could be a case where the Russians take over certain gray zones, and then we have information saying that in the, let me see, in the southeast of Boyeda, so the Ukrainian forces actually counter-attack, and then the Russians actually repelled the attack. So the Ukrainians actually attacked in this area southwest of Boyeda, which is actually where the Russians have pushed the day before. So this is happened on the 16th. The attack was on the 15th from the Russian side. So there is some kind of fighting over at this area here. Novosilka itself, the Ukrainian Defense Ministry simply report there is attack at Novosilka, and they say that they repulsed the attack on 15th and on the 16th. So maybe it's referring to this fighting over here. And there is reinforcement being reported in this sector here. So it's just basically a replacement of one brigade with another. And then over at Marinka, the situation is pretty peculiar. Both sides is saying that they are attacking or defending. The Russian Defense Ministry say that the Yoke group of forces, basically the forces here is actually the Chechen forces supported by Russian military infantries, and then this is reported. They say that they defended. However, the Ukrainian Defense Ministry say that the Russians are the one attacking, and Ryba actually do confirm that the Russians are the one doing the push, with the Ukrainians attempting counter attacks against the Russian push over at Marinka. These are all happening on the 15th, and on the 16th, Ryba reported that the positional fighting continues within Marinka. And in the latest report from the Russian Defense Ministry, they say that the Ukrainians has attacked the Russian forces over at Marinka, and they managed to defend themselves. Deep State UA, however, says that the Russians are actually pushing fanatically. They like woohoo over in the northern part of Marinka. So the woohoo on the top makes it very expensive for everyone. So next time woohoo at home. And the Russian Defense Ministry reported airstrikes in the area of Marinka. So the fighting here at Marinka seems to be pretty heavy. And moving away from Marinka, further up north, this is one of those unusual parts. If you have watched the operational report or the quick update I have mentioned about this area here is usually pretty quiet, because these are one of the most entrenched positions along the Donetsk. You can see all these trench lines, and these are pre-war. So imagine after the war have started, the trench line has probably expanded by quite a bit. And however, there is reports of fighting near Krasnohorivka. The Yoke group of forces repelled attack near Krasnohorivka, and the Ukrainian Defense Ministry actually in their own way of projection saying that the Russians attacked Krasnohorivka. So the fighting at Krasnohorivka came as a unusual situation, and then this is then acknowledged by the Russian Defense Ministry, saying that they defended against Ukrainian attack at Staromihailivka. This Staromihailivka almost never appears on the reports. So this is very unusual, which means the Ukrainians are pushing this area at Staromihailivka. And yeah, let's see how this goes. This proceeds, whether this will become a sustained attack. The report was on the 16th. The Russian Defense Ministry in their latest report did not mention about fighting at Staromihailivka. So this might be a probe, or this might be an attempted attack, and then they realize the defenses are too strong. We're not too sure. But this is something to note, because if the fighting flare up in this region here, then we might see this as a very big offensive, from all the way from north of Vodian, Pervomayske, to Staromihailivka and Marinka. It looks pretty big and very, very ambitious, because Donetsk is a very, very, very big city. So moving into the Avdiivka front, at the Avdiivka front, the Ukrainian Avdiivka offensive continues with, you can see so many icons over at Pervomayske. There is fighting reported at Pervomayske on the 15th, 16th, and 17th, all reported by the Russian Defense Ministry. There is also fighting reported at Vodian over here, according to Deep State UA. So the Ukrainians are attacking in this area with the prime focus over at Pervomayske. There's a Russian Ka-52 getting shot down over the Donetsk sector, according to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. It's not clear exactly where. So basically, there is another Russian Ka-52 shot down. I think this is the 2nd of this month. And farther away, we have a Sukhoi 27 shot down over Pokrovsk, much further away. This shot down by a Russian aircraft. Again, this is usually 40 kilometers away from the front line. And as we continue in the Avdiivka sector, the Ukrainian Defense Ministry say that the Russians are conducting an offensive in the Avdiivka direction. They did not give details. so it's a projection. And shelling is being reported at Avdiivka, according to the Russian Defense Ministry. And further up north, in the northern side of the Avdiivka sector or front, the Russians are reportedly attacking Svatove. This is reported by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. However, the Russians report that it is the Ukrainians that is attacking Petrovskoye. Petrovskoye is actually this super small little village, which is not even a village, I guess, more like a parking lot, over north of Svatove. So these two reports might actually be the same report. These two is actually the same thing. And in the latest report from the Russian Defense Ministry, in today's report, there is fighting reported near Novosilka, which is a Ukrainian attack, according to the Russian Defense Ministry. So the Ukrainians are still conducting their offensive over at Avdiivka. We shall continue to monitor to see how far they can do. The prime objective, I would say, is actually to form a picture of a pig over here. You can see there's a pig. And then, you know, it's very happy. He's like, haha. Anyway, actually it's just to chop off these two pincer, so that Avdiivka can breathe. If not, then they do run the risk of getting operationally encircled should the Russians able to arrive at this road along Lastochaykine. So if this pincer succeed and cut off this road, this is the only road out of Avdiivka. So this is why it's actually pretty desperate for the Ukrainians to actually do something over here. Over at the New York sector, we have airstrikes being reported at New York. This is according to the Russian Defense Ministry, and they also shelled Zalizny, also according to the Russian Defense Ministry. And this is very unusual because this is a quiet front, the Dortmund Front, not Borussia Dortmund, but I said Dortmund as in the volcano don't want to explode, because it's old. And yeah, so the Russians shelled Zalizny and New York. So I'm not sure if this is a precursor to anything, but yeah, maybe the Ukrainians have secretly gathered a lot of forces in this area here, and the Russians just want to send a message, I guess. And over in the Bakhmut Front, and so it's a good time for you to press the subscribe button if you are not subscribed, especially if you have watched to this point and you're unsubscribed. I'm quite sure that you will want to continue to watch DPA's report, and so do support, press the subscribe button so that no new viewers that have never heard of DPA can actually discover DPA's channel. So fighting is being reported by the Deep State UA, the pro-Ukrainian source, around Klishchiivka. Fighting is reported in the northwest and the western part of Klishchiivka, with the Ukrainians continue to be pushing in this area here to capture the high ground around here. And with the capturing of the high ground, then they will be much more easier to capture the rest of Klishchiivka. And with the capture of Klishchiivka, they can have a very strong foundation in attacking the rest of these settlements around the south of Bakhmut. And in the northern flank, there is actually nothing happening. There's no more fighting around the Avdiivka region. There is, however, still a report of fighting at Orikhiv, Vasilivka, according to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. But 16, there's no report about fighting over here. So I think the Bakhmut Front is looking more and more dead as we go. And bad mood, I guess. There is a Ukrainian Sukhoi 27 shot down over Kramatorsk. And there is also in the latest report from the Russian Defense Ministry saying that the Ukrainian Mi-24 attack helicopters getting shot down over Kramatorsk. Su-27 is, I believe, the one that fires the Storm Shadow or Shadow Storm, the cruise missiles from the United Kingdom. So that's why we see a lot more of this Sukhoi 27 getting shot down. And this is unusual because this is shot down by air defense. And then for the Mi-24, it was shot down by a Russian fighter jet. So I think the Russians are getting more and more fighter ace as this war goes on. I don't think the world see much fighter aces being developed over the past few decades. because there's hardly any air war happening. Over at the Siversk Front, over at the Novosilka, the Russian Defense Ministry said that they defended a Ukrainian attack, and the Ukrainians say that they defended against a Russian attack. So there is definitely just fighting around the Novosilka region. And at Velyka itself, the Ukrainian Defense Ministry say that the Russians attacked Velyka and also attacked towards Vymka. So let me show you. Attack towards Vymka. This Ukrainian Defense Ministry talking. So they say that the Russians are attacking this way. So yeah, but this report is only on the 15th, and then nothing happened since then. Shelling is being reported at Vymka, according to the Russian Defense Ministry. Shelling is also reported at Velyka, which is kind of very out of the way. We don't really see reports of shelling at this area, or even here in Vymka, since forever. So you can actually imagine maybe there's something important over there that the Russians actually specifically mentioned that they are shelling over in that area over there. Over at Kamyanske region, the Ukrainians actually launched an attack in the latest report towards Kamyanske. Kamyanske is actually here, this area here, and this report by the Russian Defense Ministry say that they defended an attack over here. So yeah, this is interesting because we don't really see Ukrainians attacking from Kamyanske. We usually see the Russians attacking Kamyanske. So fighting reported towards Kamyanske is unusual as well. There's a lot of unusual things happening over these 2 days. And below Orikhiv, we have Deep State UA saying that there is fighting for below Orikhiv. The Russians are attacking. However, the Russian Defense Ministry say that the Ukrainians are attacking at below Orikhiv. So let's see. The Russian Defense Ministry also kind of getting into this habit, like the Ukrainians, where when they are attacking, the enemy counterattack, and they say that the enemy is attacking. So both defense ministries becoming more and more projective. Yeah, they like to project a lot. Over at the Kreminna Front, we have a lot of shelling within the Siversk forestry for the 15, 16, and 17. All according to the Russian Defense Ministry. There is fighting reported near Kuzmine. Kuzmine is here, and these are all probing or recon forces on the 15th and on the 17th. The reports. Shelling is being reported near Dibrova on the 15th, 16th, and 17th, according to the Russian Defense Ministry. There is a shelling being reported at Toske on the 15th, where they saw movements of the 63rd Mechanized Brigade. And then on the 16th, the 63rd launched a major offensive from Toske. And however, they actually got into small arms combat, and artillery shelling came on them, and the attack has been abandoned. So we haven't seen any reports of fighting yet from the Russian Defense Ministry for their latest report. So yeah, so the Ukrainians indeed launched an attack after the shelling by the Russians on Toske. There is also shelling being reported at Yampolivka on the 17th. Terny, the Russian Defense Ministry reported there is some recon forces at Terny on the 15th. And on the 16th, the Remlin 21, the pro-Russian source, reported the Russians attack towards Terny. They managed to advance a little bit on the eastern part of Terny. This is part of the gray zone. As you can see, there's this overlapping mapping between the Ukrainian mapping and the Russian mapping. This is where the Russians progressed. And there's shelling being reported at Nevsky from the 15th to the 17th. So that's all from the Kreminna Front. Pretty busy over this area here. Over the Svatove Front, we have some shelling being reported at Stemakivka on the 15th. There's also fighting reported at Stemakivka. According to the Russian Defense Ministry's Zapad group of forces, they say that their recon forces discovered Ukrainian recon, and they actually call mortar on them. And And then the Ukrainian Defense Ministry acknowledged this information, saying that the Russians are attacking Stemakivka, which is actually not exactly an attack. The Russian Defense Ministry reported fighting at Novosilka from the 15, 16, and 17. They are all probings, not full offensives. Shelling is being reported at Berestove on the 17th in the latest report, and we move into the Kupyansk Front. At the Kupyansk Front, we have shelling being reported at Kaislivka on the 15th and 17th. There is shelling being reported by the Russian Defense Ministry on the and Timkovka on the 17th, and shelling is being reported at Sinkivka as well. And over at Sinkivka, the Ukrainians probe again on the 15th. According to the Russian Defense Ministry, they did not happen on the 16th or 17th. And interesting information coming from the Russians is that there is shelling at Mestyivka on the 15th and at Mashinovo. Mestyivka is here. Mashinovo is here. So it's actually very close to each other. And then Deep State UA say that the Russians try to improve their tactical positions over this area here, probably just referring to the shelling over there. And all happening on the 15th, 16th, and on the 17th, nothing over here. And that's all from the Kupyansk Front. There's nothing over the Kharkiv Front. And yeah, this is the summary for the day of 477 to 478 for the 15th to 16th of June. And yeah, pretty long report. So do press the like button, subscribe, and do check out the interview that was on the Duran. I was on the Duran 2 days ago. So do check it out. Maybe you get triggered, maybe you will love it. The comment section is a mess. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next update.